And we are live. Welcome, everyone, to the Connected for Real podcast. I'm Rebbetzin, Bat-Chen, Grossman, and today with me is Lisa. And we're going to be talking about time and marriage. So, Lisa, introduce yourself and then we'll get right into it.
Okay, so I am a couples counselor. I work internationally, and my specialty is ADHD, though I see a lot of other types of couples. And couples will be coming to me. Sometimes they're dating, and sometimes they're either married, and sometimes they're on their second and third marriage. And besides that, I speak also at conferences. I just spoke at a huge corporation yesterday on different topics: communication, ADHD, stress, time, all sorts of issues. And I'm also an author, which I'm sure we'll get to in just a little bit too.
Yeah, that's so cool. So, I'm excited about this because time is one of the biggest topics that comes
Mhm.
up when I work with my women. I'm sure you have the same thing. Time and marriage, how time affects marriage, how marriage affects the way you see yourself within time and what you believe about yourself and your abilities, and just, our identity around time. I'm not good with time, or I'm always late, or, I'm lazy. There's all these things that we create about ourselves. We don't create them on purpose, but the beliefs that we have, the stories that we tell ourselves about
Mhm.
time, about the way we manage time. And it's fascinating to me in my own experience, in my own journey of how
Mhm.
I've gone from, oh, I'm lazy, I can't figure this out, I'm just not good at this, to, oh, I can actually do this thing. I could start on time and end on time. I could, manage myself within time. I didn't think it was possible. So, just for anybody who thinks it's impossible, it's possible. It's very cool. You can do it. Like, what's going on there?
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned so many different things. The first piece is, let's talk narratives, the stories that we tell ourselves. And I have to say, I didn't hear positives, and I don't think anybody comes in with positive stories. We have all these negative stories, whether it's, wherever it comes from, it comes in, and then it impacts our conversations with ourselves and with others, and certainly our partners. And I usually just try to slow down people and just say, like, let's just notice. I really try to move judgment out of the conversation. Let's just notice the narratives. Sometimes we'll notice, where did they come from? And then what do we want to do with them? Like, how does, I'm lazy, or I can't do this, or I can't be on time impact us? Right. And then it impacts the relationship, because we're fighting sometimes about, and certainly if we're talking ADHD, that plays a huge role in the conflicts that couples will have. So, I can go lots of different directions on this. So, is there a specific path you want to go down right now?
Yeah, I feel like one of the biggest problems that I see
Mm.
is when the husband is normal. He's a square. Like, he can figure it out. He goes, he comes back, he has his schedule, he knows when to be on time, blah, 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 right? And then, like,
Right.
why can't you just get it? It almost, people tell me he makes me feel broken, which obviously he can't make you feel anything because he is just doing him and you're just doing you. But in that relationship, in that interaction, there is a feeling that your husband's pulling you down and pushing you down and shoving it in your face that there is something wrong with you, and that you're broken, and that you're not okay or not enough. And that's way more, it feels like, than a
Yeah.
narrative, right? Like, a narrative is maybe something I think about myself or how I see myself. But if I have somebody shoving it in my face every single day, it feels a lot more potent,
Mm.
it has a lot more power on us. And
Right.
a lot of times that can really create so much resentment.
Yes. Yes. So much resentment. So, what I hear you saying is, like, we have our own narratives, right? But I actually do try to ask partners to identify their narratives about their partner, right?
Mm.
Because those play out. And then we explore, how does, if you keep that narrative about your partner, how's that impacting them? because, like you said, it pulls them down, it hurts them. And most of the couples I work with, they don't want to do that. And so we try, and then, like you said, it causes resentment and pain and hurt and anguish and all sorts of things and stress in the marriage. So I usually try to go, okay, right? You have your narratives, you have your narratives. What do we want to do? Like, is this helping it? A lot of times there are assumptions, sometimes where they're not checked. And sometimes it's like, well, you've been late for the last, 5 years. That's not a narrative. That's true. And then sort of, what do we want to do with that? Right. So each person can do something with that. So one person can decide, I want to change that. Okay, well, let's figure out, how do we want to change that? The other person might decide, maybe I'm just going to accept that. And I have to say, one of my clients actually said it out loud. He was very excited with himself. He said, we were on time, like over the holidays, everything that we had to get to, we were on time. Great. And I had a feeling he had done this. He let the cat out of the bag. He goes, instead of telling her it was at 1, I told her it was 12:45. And you know what? She was like, okay, tell me it's at 12:45. We'll be ready by 1. He was happy. She was happy. And there was no fighting. Okay,
Right.
that works. Doesn't
Right.
work for everybody, but you have to come up with something, because going around and around on the same subject is exhausting. And it doesn't feel good for you, for either one of you. So
Right.
we've got to do something different.
I love that you
Mm.
said your husband is, for the most part, not trying to push you down. Like husbands don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I mess my wife's day today? It doesn't work that way. And a
Mhm.
lot of times we think it does because that's how it feels. Like, what is it? Your entire being is just to get on my case, right? But it's not. It
Mhm.
actually isn't. And a lot of
Right.
times, from my own experience, what I have found is that my husband's just really trying to like reflect to me reality or show me what time it is. He'll just randomly ask me like, "What time is it?" You
Good.
know? "What time
Right.
is it?" I'll be like, "What are you trying to say?" He's like, "I just want to make you aware of the time." Like I really, really did
Mhm.
not say anything
Right.
other
Right.
than what I said. So
Right. Right.
so
Right.
realizing taking away that power, taking away that like story about him also is extremely important.
Right.
Powerful.
I like what you said, because can a question just be a question, right? And
Mhm.
not imply all these things. And a lot of times we make assumptions that that question about what time is it actually means all sorts of other things, when maybe it's just, what time is it? So
Yeah.
it's interesting how we can sort of put all sorts of things in there. And then it can also be the way that's asked, right? Sometimes someone can ask a very neutral question like, hey, what time is it? And we didn't hear that. We heard, what time is it? Like, implying and suggesting that, like, did you notice that it's late, that we're running late? And it's just
Right.
so
So
funny.
Hannah
So
Mason is a fellow coach. She's amazing. And do you know her?
good. Oh, I love
She
her. Yeah.
she calls it the ATM machine, that your brain is an ATM machine. And that means, so you hear a random sentence from someone says,
Mhm.
"What time is it?" And your brain automatically goes, "And that means that he thinks I'm late. And that means that I'm a not, no good for nothing. And that means I'll never get it right." And right. And we go into this whole loop just because our brain is doing this thing.
Yeah. 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 That loop. I tell people, like, you have to watch out for that loop. Um, I'm glad that you named it, because sometimes we don't realize that we're looping. And when we get in there, oh my gosh, it's like a hamster wheel. We just keep going, or like the treadmill, we just go, 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 and we can't get off of it. And it's so hard to put the brakes on, Like, if you think about a treadmill, if you turn it off quickly, like, it's a little bit of a shock to the system, right? But how do you get off? Because if you don't, again, you're running a narrative and a story that's not going to help this relationship, not going to help you. And just, it just, again, gets into this painful loop. And so
Yeah.
I'm glad
I
you
want to talk
mentioned
to you
that.
about your book. And
Yeah.
specifically, my biggest question is because I always have this like, pulled in two directions.
Mhm. Yeah.
ADHD, it's a label, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like a relief at first. We're like, "Oh,
Mhm.
finally, I figured out what's wrong with me." But then it's
Mhm.
like a label that sort of keeps you stuck in that label too. And I've
Right.
seen people let that hold them back.
Yeah. Right. 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 So on that topic, it's so interesting. I was just speaking with somebody yesterday. I don't remember the name of his book, but it was something about he was so excited that he was diagnosed and it was a sense of relief. So for some
Mhm.
people, it is a sense of relief. And sometimes people will ask me, like, I think I am, maybe I'm not, I don't know, should I get diagnosed? Now, I don't think there's a right answer there. Like, maybe, maybe not. If you're not sure right now, then don't. If you feel like it's going to lead to a sense of relief, then do it. And like you said, the difficulty is it then going to hold you back? Are you going to say, so I can't do this and I can't do this and I can't do this because I have ADHD? And to me, that's excuses. I don't deal with excuses. It's like you're going to show up and you're going to do it. And if you need to get ADHD coaching or some kind of help, great. There's so much out there. There's resources, apps. I actually have a whole section of my book on here's some resources for you. You don't have to feel like it's a sentence that is going to mean something terrible and awful because there's so many also wonderful, wonderful parts of it that people just seem to ignore. And
Right.
like we're talking about time, and that seems to be one of the difficulties for individuals with ADHD. But they also do fantastic things, like, for instance, spontaneity and time. They're great, you know? You wanna go to this event that's happening? Here we go, let's go. And that can be a
Right.
great part. We love that about them. Then
Right.
there's some other things that are a little bit more challenging when it comes to time. Okay, what are we gonna
Also,
do about
I
that?
mean, they do things much faster because they procrastinated. So then they like, finish the job in half the time. And it's like,
Right,
oh, like my husband will say, I do dishes faster, but he will do them more consistently. So
right,
isn't it worth it to just make sure they're done and then work harder? Or should he wait for me to do it and then I'll do it really quickly? Like this is just
yeah,
awareness
yeah,
without labels really helps us in our marriage personally. It's like,
right,
yeah,
yeah. And again, doesn't sound like he's right or wrong, you're not right or wrong. It's just, what do we need to do today? How are we gonna manage this? I always think about it as we're a team, right? And we need to play to our strengths. And if they need to get done in the next 5 minutes, we're gonna have you do them. If it has to be done on a regular basis this week because we have a lot of guests, then maybe possibly could be that something he's doing and maybe you're doing something else, right? How do we have to show up because we're a team. That I always focus on marriage is you guys are teammates and you have to take care of each other. How are we going to do that? And if time is going to be something that really causes stress, let's play to your strengths when it comes to that. And this is a perfect example of it. Perfect example. I
yeah,
love it. I love it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Okay, let's talk about your book.
Yeah. Back to my book.
It's so beautiful.
Uh, I love
I'm
it.
a
And it
designer,
really,
so first thing I see is the book. Okay, I'm like, whatever it says is fine, but like, it's so beautiful. It's
yeah.
also the inside is so easy to read.
I have to say, the major keys for me was couples. I'd be seeing couples and be like, I tried to read this book and I got like 20 pages in. And this one chapter was 50 pages long. Like, how am I supposed to read that? Don't they know I have difficulty focusing? Granted, sometimes they hyperfocus and sometimes they have difficulty paying attention and focusing. So I really focused on taking all the different feedback that clients would give me about different books and put it into my book. And so that's why I was
I
hoping
noticed.
easy read. And I tried to break things down a lot, and not only break them down because I would teach something, but then I would say, okay, now let's do some exercises around that. Right. And so then there's some questions and there's interaction because this is a couple's book. You should be interacting on that topic that of something you just learned. But then I want you to do something. Right. So each section had a different purpose and it just kept repeating itself over and over and over again. So you really knew that, okay, this is what we're going to have. We're going to have material that you're going to learn, questions you're going to discuss, takeaways, right? Come back
Mhm.
to it and just keep going. So,
I want to give you like 10 stars just for the thought behind the design.
that's
Because I was a graphic designer for 15 years. I did, I designed books and book covers and all sorts of other awesome things. And it's so fun when the person understands the importance of the design, the importance of taking the time to like break down the sentences, break down the page to make it easier to read. It's such a life changer, especially for
Yes.
people who are not, I'm not a book person or I don't read, you know.
Yeah.
This is definitely like, good job, good job.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah. And we spent a lot of time. It's so interesting. I think I maybe way back in my memory, I remember seeing something about being a graphic designer, but you don't realize like how much time and effort goes into like what title, right? I remember the person I was working with, she kept saying to me, "So what are we going to call this?" I'm like, "I don't know." And then one day she said to me, "What have you been dealing with a lot this week?" And I said, "People just keep saying, 'Why won't you stop interrupting me? Why won't you stop interrupting me?'" I'm like, and she said to me, "Well, that sounds like it really speaks to people and it's a challenge for people." So that's how we
Right.
came up with the name. And then the picture, I don't know, as a graphic designer, again, just like how do you have a picture? Like what picture do you put on the front cover that's going to make people go like, "Oh, that looks interesting." And so
Yeah.
there's a lot
You
that
know,
goes
I
into it.
think I think the title's great because it's so relatable, I'm interrupting you because I was thinking about something completely different. I wasn't listening. Sorry. Like let's be completely honest. I don't know what you were saying. I just sort of had a thought and I had to say it. It's so
Mhm.
beautiful because like we said, like take away the meaning behind it.
Mhm.
I'm just, if we could just be honest, then it's not
Yeah,
personal. I wasn't
right.
interrupting you on purpose.
Oh, yeah, all the time. I have people like that just oh, I have to tell you something really funny. So somebody didn't know what I did, and she said, "Oh, can I see a copy of your book?" So I had it. It had a bunch of things I was carrying with me. So I showed her the book. She goes, "Is this a book for Jewish couples?" And I was just like, "Well, isn't that interesting?" "Not specifically." And she's like, "Well, I noticed that Jewish couples interrupt each other a lot." And I said, "Well, I don't know if that's a stereotype or a reality, but that's interesting because my book is written just for a global audience, and I was going to make it a little bit more specific. We were doing some edits to it to speak to a little bit more of a Jewish audience, which has some different things that you need to be sensitive to, or some I actually see a lot of people who are religious across the board on different religions. And, it's just interesting to hear their take and sort of their response to the book and the book title and, the challenges that couples have. So
Yeah.
very, very interesting.
I feel
Yeah.
like God created marriage in a way
Mhm.
that everybody across the board is having universal issues, but we all think we're the only ones. It's like there's so much shame around it because it's only me and it must be something is wrong with me and I made the wrong decision and this is the wrong guy and I don't know what I'm doing here and now I feel stuck and whatever and like all this blah 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 blah. And then you go out and you hear other couples and you're like, "What? Everybody is doing this?"
That's right. Right. And that was actually talking about one piece. I didn't mention the other piece of my book, which is about stories. Of stories. Of course, I can't make it a real couple, but I try to keep it relatable because people often come in and they're like, "I know you've never seen this before." And I'm thinking, "I've seen it 50 times this week." I want to normalize it for people. They aren't, not only as a couple are we having these universal challenges. Certainly, people with an ADHD have some very universal challenges across the board. But I think people need to know, like, and there is this, I don't know if it's shame, but an embarrassment. As an individual therapist, people would refer me all the time. "Oh, Lisa's great. Contact her for, I did a lot of trauma work but couples like, no, I don't want to tell anybody that I'm having a relationship problem." And so, it can be
And then you hear
challenging.
about it when it's quote unquote too late, which I don't believe that there is never too late.
I know. I know. Yeah. I've had some
It's
couples remarry. Yeah.
really? That's so cute.
Yeah. You have to all I'll say about that is please get help if you decide to remarry. You really
Yes.
need very, very clear, whatever were the challenges there, they didn't go away. They will repeat themselves, and make sure that you really get the help that you need to not just do it again the second time, because that sometimes
Yes.
happens frequently. So,
Yeah, no, listen, even when people get divorced and marry someone else, the
yeah.
problems don't necessarily go away. A lot of
Mhm.
people are like, "Oh, I'll get a different guy and everything will be different." But like,
Yeah.
nope, because, God made everyone
Mhm.
around you these mirrors, right? They're all showing you what you need to work on. So if you didn't fix it the first time, it's just going to show itself again.
Oh, yes, yes. I've had people work with me in the first relationship, and then sometimes they'll continue doing different individual work or whatever the case might be. And then a year, 2 years, 5 years later, say, "Oh, Lisa, can I come in? I'm in a new relationship. We're about to get married." The person not only walks in looking, I've had it, looking like the first spouse, but the relationship issues are, like you said, exactly the same. If you didn't work them out, they're going to just show up again. And there they are. And we're talking about the same thing again. So
Yeah.
it's so true. So true.
Oh, so let's talk about a little
Mm.
bit of like, I love picking on people who are different than me.
Okay.
Um, I don't work with the couple. I only work with the wife. And I
Hmm.
love that you work with the couple because we need both of us in the world. Some
Yes.
couples are really happy and willing to go as a couple, and
Yeah.
it's wonderful because then they could both get the tools, the help, the
Mm.
whatever they need. And
Right.
I work with the women specifically and only the
Mm.
woman
Right.
because when he's not around, she
Yeah.
finally gets to complain for real,
Yeah.
like get it all out of her system and be
Mhm.
honest about what she really wants. And then she can
Yeah.
take ownership and move
Yeah.
towards that. So it's
Cool.
been really fascinating for me to
Yeah.
see a lot of people have this resistance to it. Like, how can you fix anything if he's not in the room? I'm like, no, actually, it works better.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. That's amazing that you do this work, because if they also are in couples, she's going to show up as such a stronger, I know myself, I know what I need, I know, right? Like that work is so, so important. Without it, you're trying to deal with two people that don't know what they want, what they need, how to express themselves. So I love when people go to individual work and get some support. And like you said, they get to also just dump it. Like they can't do that with me because
He's right there.
we do, he's right there. I mean, certainly we are going to dump things, but it's somehow different. It's just somehow different when it's just one-on-one with you. And they can be
Yeah.
freer, more open.
People ask me like, but don't you then think so badly of their husbands? I'm like, no, because I know it's all a story, right? I have no problem. Like, okay, because at the end of the session, she
Mm,
herself will start laughing and be like, I can't believe I believe that about him. I can't believe I said that or thought that because
mm,
it's not really,
mm,
maybe it's reality to how you see reality. But then when you change your perspective, you're like, oh, okay, I could
yes.
try that. This is going to work. And one of the coolest things that happens is people come to me hoping that their husbands would change. Like, I just need him to change.
Change him. Right.
Yeah, change him.
Change him.
My first offer was, fix your husband in 90 minutes. It was a great offer.
That's a great option.
Um, it was. And people got upset with me. He's like, my husband's not a washing machine. He doesn't need to be fixed. But like that was what people were saying, right? I
Yeah.
just want to fix him because he's the problem.
Right.
And then when you work with me, it's very clear. I'm not,
Mhm.
we're not focusing on him. He's not our problem. We're gonna get things fixed with from inside. And then what
Yes.
happens is the husband changes. And
Yeah.
and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Why is he
Yeah.
supportive suddenly? Why is he so nice to me? Why is he speaking
Mhm.
differently? And it's like,
Uh,
because that
mm,
mirror, that reflection
mm.
didn't have to happen anymore. You're done. You fixed it. Move on. It's so
Right.
cool.
That is
So
so
cool.
cool. That is so cool. I'm always so excited to hear that, because we need more people like you doing that work, because unfortunately sometimes doing individual work, and I've had people come in and they're like, all I do is complain, and now I feel worse about my partner than before I went to individual work, right?
Mhm.
And so that, you could imagine, would be quite difficult in my office. They think it's all his fault because it
Right.
was reinforced and they didn't do any work on themselves. And look,
Ay,
and
ay. Don't
yeah,
do
so
that. Don't do that.
right,
Um,
right. It's so wonderful to hear. Your
yeah,
approach is just amazing and so
yeah.
needed in for so many women.
You know why? Because I specifically work with women in business and successful careers. These are women who
Okay.
are on the other side of the classic couple, right? Like the old-fashioned couple, the husband was on top, the wife was on bottom, like she was complaining and she was trying to like, like the goal was to empower her so that she could be a little bit of more of an equal,
Yeah,
sort of bring her up to his level. But the
yeah,
empowerment movement has created this new generation of really empowered wives that
yeah,
are way above their husbands in some ways, not in all ways, but the way they feel about it. And then
right,
empowering more is just going to create a bigger gap. And
right.
I've seen how husbands are just, they're happy with their work, they're happy with their life, they're doing their thing, they're in a rhythm. They don't
Right.
see why do I need to change? Why do I need to grow? And the wife has these, antsy pantsy, like, I just want to like, make more money, grow my business, do this thing, make an impact. And they're like,
Yeah.
why? you know? And
Such
so
difference. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So when you're on that side of the spectrum, like you've
Mhm.
worked on yourself so much to be able to create a business or to be able to really make an impact that
Yeah,
you already know the basics of mindset work, the basics of what, there's no point of blaming. You just take responsibility,
right.
make your goals and go after them. Those things work really well in the business world, but then you have to make them work with your marriage as well. So like my work is finding balance between the business and the marriage and creating that really
Yes,
good feeling in both.
right. And I love that idea of balance because it is sometimes hard, especially look, even though she's working full time, probably, or quite a bit as an entrepreneur in the business world, she probably still coming home to doing quite a few things.
Right.
That's just what we still find. And, how do we balance and how do we ask for help? Not, I'm sure something you probably talk to women about
Yes,
can
I
be
do.
challenging. Can be challenging.
Yeah.
And um, so
So
important.
let's get into some practical advice about somebody who is not neurotypical, ADHD, just,
Neuro-
creative, not that square, routiny type of person who's got time under their belt. What
yeah.
are some really great things that women are listening right now could just
Mhm.
implement or think about?
Okay. So you're saying if the woman, for instance, is neurodiverse,
Mhm.
what are some things she can implement? So
Right.
actually, just before I jump into that, my book, it could be like 500 pages, and I had to stop myself. But one of the chapters I left out, I did write an article about it. And I do have some sort of look over here and look over there. I do want to just say that what we understand about neurodiverse women, since we're here, I want to just put it out there since you probably have a lot of women listening. They do not look the same as the men. And sometimes women are quite shocked that, again, if they decide to get diagnosed, I didn't realize that X, Y, and Z were signs that I was neurodiverse. I just
Right.
thought it was normal.
Right.
So, for instance, burnout is one of those signs because women go and they can really hyper focus and they go and they go and they go and they go and they go. And so this is not all about women and, what are all the signs of neurodiversity, but I will just say that people can reach out to me. I'm happy to send you some things if you want to provide some resources to individuals that, the typical classical, ADHD are based on male patients. And so thinking, inpatient, distractible, hyperactive, women aren't necessarily, there are some women that look like that, but they don't a good percentage of the time look like that. So I really want to make that awareness out there.
So good. I'm really happy you said that because that's one of the pushbacks about labeling is like, but that's not me. So why are you labeling me like that? Or, not all the signs fit my personality or like whatever it is. It's like, it's fine.
Right,
It's fine.
right.
Realizing that all these labels and all these scientific things, they come to bring awareness, to assist
Mhm.
in
Right.
finding the differences, just so
Mhm.
you and your husband are not the same. Surprise, you know? But uh yeah,
Right,
but
right.
it doesn't mean it's there to limit you to be like, okay, now from now on, this is who you are, right?
Right. Yeah. So I don't want to limit anybody. And I don't want to also suggest, oh my gosh, like I've been dealing with burnout for 3 years. That must mean that, Lisa's saying that I have ADHD. I am not saying that. I'm just saying that there are very different signs that were really in the last few years understanding about women. And I've had a lot of late diagnosed, totally missed in school because I will say that I find that women seem just in general coping, like can cope better, but because the signs, can be, being that really hyper focused kid, getting those A grades was easy because there's also not all, but many with a very high intelligence. So I can do this, right? This is
Right,
not so hard. School is easy for me, but now let's add a marriage, and now let's add a few kids, and now it starts to show. Now it
right,
starts to show. And we can't keep when we're good at keeping balls going in the air, right? We're a good juggler, but you now put 8 balls in the air and now they start to fall, and I start to see cracks in the things that before I couldn't see. So I think it's just important to notice. So back to your question, which was like, what are some tips and tools? I think if someone's dealing with this, it's knowing where you're having difficulty, right? Because again, every individual, if they're dealing with neurodiversity, specifically ADHD, can be on the spectrum or other things, are going to show up a little bit differently, right? So if you're having a really hard time with clutter or being disorganized, or, let's just pick those 2 areas. There are tremendous resources. Again, if you go to the back of my book, you can just Google it. You can go to ChatGPT. They'll pull up 10 of them for you also. There's a lot of resources. So I always try to encourage people, get some resources. You don't have to be like, I'll figure it out. You've been figuring it out for a really long time. I try to bring tremendous compassion. You've been doing it and you've been doing great, but it doesn't have to be so hard. You don't have to be at it, at all by yourself, feeling like going back to that idea of like just me, nobody, everybody else's house is clean and organized. And what's wrong with me? Then I'm having a hard time getting the kids out and ready for school. And oh my gosh, where's the homework that, you're not the only one. And
right.
so knowing that you're not the only one, bringing some compassion, and then getting resources. I do refer out for ADHD coaching. Again, sometimes people really need that support. Sometimes because of negative messaging of, oh, you're such a flake. Oh, you're, out there, dreamy land, typical things that people will say, going back to narratives and stuff for ADHD women as at a younger age where it wasn't diagnosed. Not that everybody was like that, just again, sometimes people are labeled that way, and now there's an impact on how they see themselves and how they, getting back to the interrupting, like the woman, the little girl, would be the one that, just blurted out something, right? And they'd be like, shh, right? Or she learned, right? Like, be quiet, right? So, but it still would come through here and there, right? But now, as she gets more tired, as she gets more stressed, it's harder and harder for what we know, the prefrontal cortex, to put that brake on and not to have things start to slip out and impact work or relationships or other things. And so there's tools out there, and to be able to use them. So whatever it might be a calendar setup, if you're really having a hard time organizing your day and your schedule, it could be getting a house cleaner. I've had many, and they're like, oh, I can't spend the money. I'm like, but maybe, this will help you. And so I just like to throw out different ideas and see what sticks and what helps. And what the worst case scenario, try it for a month. If it doesn't work, then okay, we'll come back to the drawing board and say that didn't work. We didn't like it for whatever reason. Let's try something else or somebody else.
Right.
So to me, there's no
I
wrong
think
or right.
the biggest problem that I see is you don't know what you don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You hear about, oh, you should get yourself a cleaning lady, or, why don't you, I don't know what, try this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no way, that's never going to work for me.
Right. Right.
I can't afford it. It's not worth it, blah, 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 like all this stuff. And then,
Yeah.
I have this with some of my clients where I'm like, just try it, let's
Yeah.
do it, see
Yeah.
what happens. And then
Yeah.
they set it up and it's like,
Yeah.
why did I not do this sooner? It changed my life. My capacity is just enormous now. Why?
Yeah.
And what I
Right.
heard, one of the podcasts I was listening to recently, she said,
Mm.
we think that 1 hour of cleaning
Right.
is, her money, like the money I pay her is
Right.
equivalent to the money I pay myself for an hour. So if you make, X amount per hour and it's more than your cleaner, then it's
Mhm.
worth getting a cleaner. But
Right.
actually, it's not like that. It's
Yeah.
1 hour of the cleaner is going to take a week off of your shoulders because of the way that it exhausts you and drains you to have to think about and process and do and create and blah, blah, blah. It's
Right.
an entire week off of your mental
Mhm.
load. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, is that worth it? Is that worth it for you?
Right.
Just go do it.
Right, because what you're describing is that people, especially if you happen to have ADHD, is you're procrastinating. I really don't wanna vacuum. I really don't wanna clean up that space, right? Like, oh my gosh, the mental energy it takes to clean up a space for some individuals is talk about a week. It feels like you drained my energy for the month. I need to, like, sit down, right? Like, so I worked for an hour to clean up that space, and now I have to sit down for 3. When that person who comes in and cleans it up, like, they're off, doing their next job, and
Right.
it's so much easier. So,
Yeah.
like you said, give it a try. You can always go back to the drawing board and go, "Okay, didn't work. Okay, next, let's try something else." I always say, "Can you try it?" "Let's figure it out, and if it doesn't work, okay, next." But
Yeah.
you tried it. You knew it worked, and like you said, the best could be that you find out, "Wow, this is amazing. Why didn't I do this earlier?" And then,
Right.
yay. Feels great. Feels great.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love this conversation.
Uh,
So, I
very much.
have a couple of resources I'm going to put out right here just in case anybody
Oh,
was listening. So, I have the guide to unravel overwhelm, which
mm,
should take you 20 minutes to set up and
that's
then less
yeah,
than 10 minutes to implement. So,
okay.
so cool. You could get that at connectedforreal.com/guide. That I found is the thing that got me off,
Mm,
out of all of
mm,
that land of I can't into
right,
like everything is possible is like this one shift. And it's funny
right.
because you would think like, no, I need to overhaul my whole life. I need to get my act in order, my home, my
Yeah,
laundry, my dishes, my kids, my everything before I can even think about going for my dreams. And actually, it's like, no, pick one thing.
yeah,
Like
right.
that's it.
Very small, really small.
One thing.
Wow.
One thing. So that
Right.
completely
Mhm,
transformed my life, and so I'm giving it to other people for free
mhm.
is my gift to the world. Unravel your
Oh,
overwhelm. Go for it.
since we're
And
doing some resource I'm sorry. Apologize. Go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah, go
Sorry.
for it. Yeah. I was gonna
So I
say
was
there's
gonna
another thing, but yeah.
Oh, no, no, so go ahead, and I'll share after. I apologize. Go ahead.
No, so cool. So in my program,
Yeah.
I have a a bonus, like a mini series
Oh,
called Run Your Business Like God Runs His World.
I love
And it
it.
is basically coming at all these different skills like time
Mm,
management and delegation and systemizing and automation,
mm,
all these things
yeah.
from a completely different angle. I was like, let's just emulate God. Like he put
Mhm.
in these systems for a reason. And
Right.
it's fascinating. And I have two-part time management there, which is mind-blowing because it's so refreshing and different than what you've
Mm,
been,
yeah.
we've been consuming so much, sometimes
Mm,
noise that makes us feel worse about ourselves. So this is extremely helpful.
oh, I think I wanna do that. I we gotta talk afterwards. So, that sounds amazing. That sounds so nourishing, like, that's about nourishing ourselves and taking care and learning to really tune in and listen, and I think that's, what I'm hearing, and I'm sure that's what you're doing.
Yeah,
So,
I love it.
yeah, I love it too. Ooh, special, so special.
Let's get into your resources.
Yeah, so what I was gonna mention, this is, I think, very helpful for having a community that, like, I'm not alone in this. And so CHADD, CHADD, oh gosh, I don't have it off the top of my head, children and adults with ADHD or something like that. Don't quote me on it. But Chad runs groups. They have a great website for not only just information, but again, these different groups that they run, and then add a ADDA. And again, I apologize. I should have remember. I'm so used to saying the acronym that I don't remember what it stands for. Maybe adults diagnosed with ADHD or something along those lines. And I think it's .org specifically. They have a lot of information. They work together. They do a lot of conjoint programming, but they have a magazine, always the latest research, newest research, whatever has just come out, they have it. It's a great place that I turn to also for just connection with the leaders in this neurodiverse world. And they also have different groups and things. So if it needs to fit into your system, there are also, I'm just trying to think. There are specific breakoffs, if you happen to be Jewish I think in Chad, I want to say, but yeah, you can certainly, reach out and I'm happy to connect you to the other resources. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking sort
Yeah,
of big,
that's
you know,
it's
resources.
extremely helpful. It's extremely
Yeah.
helpful to be part of a community, even just of, just get out of yourself. It's like the main
Yeah.
thing. Just get out of your own head. You're not the only one. You're not some like special snowflake that is holding the entire world on her shoulders because nobody else can get it and nobody will understand. It
Yeah.
is so relieving just to get out and meet other people and speak to them. And a lot of times,
Yeah.
like I said yesterday, I had a training and
Mhm.
it was actually a really good training. It was called
Mhm.
4 Steps to Guarantee Your Marriage Survives Your Success. And
Mm.
it
Yeah.
was, whoa, it was so good.
Yeah.
Anyway, I blew my own mind. That's how excited I am. But one of the things that came out is that, like, a lot of times the adult noises, like the responsible sounds that are coming out, are like your parents, your in laws, and your husband. So, like, all
Mhm.
these people who know what they're talking about and are telling you, like, you cannot go after your dreams until you get your act in order, right? You cannot do the things you want until you do the things you need. But the
Mhm.
opposite is true for people like us. It's like, I
Yeah,
can't
for
do the things I have to do because I have no motivation. And if I could
sure.
just fill myself up, then I would have the energy to do them.
Right, right. Don't they say there's an expression, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but like, ask the busiest person to get something done, right? And that's basically what you're saying is that like when we're busy, like we can even get more done, right?
Right.
And it's amazing. We
Also,
get,
busy people have the systems in place to get
Mhm.
more done because they don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I want something done. Okay, how do I usually do something when I want to do it?
Yeah.
I've already
Mhm.
practiced this muscle of getting things done. But if
Yes.
you're trying to push somebody to do something they don't want to do or don't feel like doing, and you think this is how it should be done, well, guess what? It's not.
Mhm. Not gonna happen.
It's not working.
No. no, it's gonna be getting a lot of resistance there, right? A lot of
Yeah.
resistance. Wow, that's great. Yeah, we wanna yeah, so, I'm hearing the entrepreneurs, right? The women who are in businesses and trying to create more and do more, that could and it definitely can impact the relationship, right? How do you bring that energy? Maybe it's a side point. I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but that if I think about marriage, like if we give out to like our business or to others, what do we have at the end of the day? So some people feel like they just come home depleted and they have nothing left for their relationship. And that might be true, but sometimes we get so energized and so excited about what we're doing, or even coming back home with more to give.
Yeah.
So,
And
you know,
that's what I really want to talk about. Oh my gosh, you totally hit it.
yeah,
When
yeah,
your job depletes you, it's
yeah,
usually because you're using it as an excuse or as an
mm,
escape.
yeah,
You are unhappy at home, so
mm,
you might as well go do something that actually fills you, but then you're not actually being filled because you're not doing it for the right reasons. And then
yeah,
you're working extra hard to pretend that you're extra busy because you need to stay, out.
right,
And I see this a lot with, women who will stay up late because they
mm,
did a webinar and then they had to send out the replay and then they went on YouTube and got lost in some like productivity thing and then they watched this, documentary and then but
yeah,
just not to go back and like be
mm,
mommy, I just want to like stay in this energy of I'm a somebody. Well, that's not a
yeah,
healthy place, right? That's not
mm,
going to fill you. That's going to be
yeah,
very draining too. So, how do we make sure that you go and do the work that you want to do and that you're here to do, but in,
mm,
from an ease, with flow, with alignment, I'm here for you, God. Help me figure it out and then go back to doing the things I really want to do. And then you
mm,
come back to your family, you're like, woohoo, look at this. I'm so happy,
mm,
right? And
yeah,
it's contagious. It's contagious.
mm,
So I actually
yes,
say most of most of the women who are, making it to six figures and then getting divorced or making it to 1 million and then breaking everything up, those are
mm,
women who have been so resentful and squished for so many years that when they
yeah,
finally went for their dreams, it was like not
yeah,
healthy. It wasn't a good energy. It was like, I'm going to show you I can do it. And then when they finally do it, they're like, ha, in your face.
yeah,
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 that's not a very
yeah,
good place to be.
no,
Right?
no, no,
And so, like,
and
if we want to guarantee that it's not gonna be this way, what you wanna
yeah,
do is you wanna fill yourself up and you want to lean into God's,
mhm,
purpose that He put
right,
into you right here, right? He put you here on purpose to do a purpose, and when you can lean into that and really be in alignment, like there is no way that you're going to feel the resentment and the frustration and the squishiness. You're just going to fill up and then overflow, right? And then you can fill your kids with all that love and all that excitement because you have what to give, but it's not going to come from a place of depletion.
no, 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 and that's, talking about the gifts and noticing all the things that God has given you and to be able to really see them. I did this earlier. You were saying something in a different perspective, and I was like, yeah, sometimes we need a new set of glasses, and sometimes our brains are wired in such a way that we don't have a tendency to look for the positive in ourselves and sometimes even others. Right, and
Right.
how do we slow that down and notice and change? Sometimes we need to change our glasses, different set of glasses, and really be able to. I think we need to start with ourselves and be able to notice the gifts and all the strengths and all the wonderful things He's given us. And of course, there's some challenges that we have, but then to be able to say, okay, and now what do I want to do? And how do I share those? And how do I, you know, emanate and light up, my home and then, the world with that. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
very
think,
important.
pulling it all together for women who have ADHD or, any other type of label or non-label,
Mhm.
feeling like they have to. Like, you're supposed to be a mother and wife. This is supposed to fulfill you. This is supposed to make you feel excited. And it's like, but it doesn't. It makes me feel very small and very squished. And then it's the story about the story. It's like, I'm supposed to be happy and I'm not happy. I'm supposed to, you know. And so, really giving yourself the permission to realize that, hey, my gift is to multitask. My gift is to go after a lot of things. And I don't have to be limited just because I'm a mother and wife. I could do other things and it will actually fill, they'll work together so beautifully if I can figure it out, if I can do it right.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. We are going to work on seeing those gifts and being able to not allow all these labels and limitations from whether it's inside or outside, be able to break out of those, break free. So,
Yay. Oh, I love how you did that. Break free, open your hands, open it up, allow yourself
yeah.
to
Right.
receive that.
Right. Yeah. And that's really what God wants us to do, is to break free from the chains and all the things that bind us and just hold us down, right? Like it just
Yeah. Okay. So, just so everybody knows, we're going to
yes.
have the link to your book in the
Yeah.
show notes and everywhere, everywhere you look. So, feel
Okay.
free to click on that. Your book is so beautiful, so well designed, so well written, and it's easy to consume, which I think is phenomenal.
I'm very blessed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And thank you for doing this work.
thank
I'm
you.
very happy I have someone to refer to when it comes to couples because,
Oh,
there is always some people who want to do things together, and this is great.
oh. And I have someone that I now, because I definitely need to find some people, like you said, that really want to help support, uplift, and really bring out that woman to be her best self and to bring that into her relationship. And I'm so blessed to connect.
Yes.
So thank you so much.
Yay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Any last words? Where can people find you?
Sure. So I think the easiest way to find me is Counselor for Couples, Counselor for, not the number four, but FOR, counselorforcouples.com. My name, Lisa Rabinowitz. I guess maybe just quickly my email address, Lisa R. So my first name with my last initial at the letter T, securemail.com. Maybe we can put that in there too. But that's on
Yeah,
my
sure.
website also. And yeah, love to connect. And
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you for having this open conversation and really helping our listeners feel really good about where they are and, exactly how they are so that they don't have to feel like there's something wrong with them, but more like, let's work with what I have. Has been a really helpful conversation. And thank you for coming.
thank
And
you
thank you
so
for
much.
listening. And, make sure you come back for more amazing episodes. Don't forget to be connected for real.